Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the forum today. I'm Victoria Ivanisheva, project manager of the British Council in Ukraine. So let's get cracking. This is our second forum for English teachers, and I hope that today we have a lot of us. There are more than 2,000 teachers who registered. Unfortunately, I don't know how many are here with you now, but I hope a lot. And the teachers are all from all over Ukraine, and there are some teachers from other countries as well, which is fantastic. I hope that today we can answer the question of the forum, whether involving and communicative environment for students is not a myth, but opportunities. And our experts from across the globe can help answer these questions. I would like to introduce our guests, and I would like to welcome Oksana Kovalenko. I'm so happy that Oksana Kovalenko, who is a lead specialist of the Department of Preschool, School and Inclusive Education of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, has joined us today to welcome you. I would like to say that Oksana leads on modern foreign languages learning and teaching for about 20 years, or even more, I think. And she also represents Ukraine on the Education Committee of the Council of Europe. Oksana, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome.
Nice presentation, my presentation. I prepared my speech before because I knew that I've got only 3 minutes. That's why I tried to prepare my best. I would like to introduce maybe some new facts in the connection with the system of education and of Ukraine. In 2018, the Ministry of Education started the most important educational reform, New Ukrainian School. You know about it, I think so. According to this reform, our schools will not only give knowledge, but also teach students how to apply their knowledge in practice. This year, we are starting a new stage of our reform for basic secondary school. It's our new step in a connection with this reform. It's our new step in professional development of our teachers. It's a new step in the preparation of our materials for students and teachers. And this means changing from traditional approach of knowledge reproduction to competency-based approach. Children are the core of learning teaching process. According to the new requirements, teachers should create possibilities to enable school children to collaborate and communicate in the classroom, use their creativity, think critically, and be responsible for their own learning results. Responsibility, it's a big step for us, but responsibility not only for students, but for teachers as well. Therefore, the new Ukrainian school reform puts forward new requirements for teachers to organize work in the classroom and to create an environment to develop language skills, communicative skills, and 21st century competences. It's very important to stress 21st century competences. We have very successful and fruitful cooperation between our ministry and international organizations such as British Council, Goethe Institute, Ambassade de France, and others in the sphere of professional development of teachers. Their help is very valuable for us in this direction, and we are planning new projects with them in a connection with our new steps and further implementation of our reform. I hope that participation in such meetings will be useful for our teachers as well, and it will help us to proceed this reform more successful. Thanks again, British Council, for organizing this forum. I think it's very, very important for Ukraine, for Ukrainian teachers, for Ukrainian students as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana, for this information, and thank you for what the work the ministry is doing to improve education and how English teachers are going to be involved into this process. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm happy to welcome Simon Asseton, Director of Future English Program of Wider Europe. Wider Europe comprises 15 countries, including Ukraine. I reckon that the majority of you know what online teacher community platform is. We call it OTC platform. And even if you don't know, you probably have heard about it. And the majority of you are engaged in activities on the platform. And I would like to say that I would call Simon our OTC father, because it's his idea of creating online space for teachers. And nowadays, during COVID time, I think this is just something we really needed. We needed the space for communicating, for sharing, finding new ideas, and developing. Simon, you're welcome.
Great, thank you, Vika. Welcome everyone to this online forum. I helped moderate the earlier forum in January, and I have to say I enjoyed it hugely, and I was so impressed with the engagement and interest and motivation of all the teachers who took part. And I'm sure that this event will be even more spectacular than the last one. This forum is these fora, I suppose, are the latest in our formidable partnership with the Ministry of Education, supporting the reform program and developing the quality of teaching and learning in schools across Ukraine. Just for a quick recap, I mean, we started working, supporting the new Ukrainian school reforms a few years ago, and managed to train 18,000 primary school teachers. And that work has just been independently evaluated. And we're very pleased that the evaluation has shown that 75 to 90% of primary teachers who took part in that program are now teaching more communicatively in their classroom, particularly in the areas of songs and games and using flashcards and so on. So I think that's been really successful. We are currently, or we have been hosting 2,000 basic school teachers from Ukraine on the online teacher community platform, helping their professional development, looking at aspects of their practice. And that has been remarkably successful. And we're looking forward to working with other basic school teachers in the coming, well, the rest of this academic year and into the next academic year. If I can give a quick plug to the online teacher community platform. We currently have over 5,000 teachers actively engaged on the platform across the region. And if you haven't yet gone there, please do make sure that you pay us a visit, register, and have a look. You can set up your own e-portfolio. You can engage with other teachers in Ukraine in the national Ukraine domain, but you can also engage with teachers internationally through our special interest groups. And we've got a number of really exciting special interest groups, 21st century skills, that Oksana was referring to, special educational needs, ICT in education, but we're also just about to launch a new SIG, which is about the climate crisis. And this coincides with all the work the British Council is doing globally around supporting teachers with ideas and materials for their classrooms to raise awareness of the climate crisis. So I think there's courses there. There's you can interact with other teachers asynchronously through our discussion forums, but also synchronously through our live webinars. We have fortnightly webinars. We've got calendars of all sorts of other events that you can join. There's ELT concepts of the week. There's publications that we help you to go, and I think it's a great platform. So if you haven't gone there, please do pay us a visit, and we're more than happy to welcome you to our online teacher community. I think that's probably all I've got time for. I'd just like to say thank you very much to Vika and the team, the British Council team, for organising this. I think these are fantastic events, and I'm really, really pleased to be here at the beginning of this one, and I'll follow it over the next couple of hours. So wishing you all a very positive forum with lots of ideas and lots of energy, which I know you'll bring to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for telling us about the platform and opportunities we can have there. And in general, thank you for creating opportunities for teachers. Thank you for being with us today.
A pleasure. Good luck.
And there is one more person who I would like to introduce. This is Olga Pavlenka. She is the 8th president of ITEFL Ukraine. ITEFL stands for International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language. I would like to say that Olga is an English teacher at the Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and she is also a teacher trainer in a number of British Council projects. And one more information which I would like to share with you about her is that she is a former jazz band player and a great fan of jazz. So, Ola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vika. Dear colleagues and friends, it's a great honor to be here today and to speak to you. And I'd like to thank the British Council for having ITEFL Ukraine here. British Council and ITEFL Ukraine have been partners for more than 25 years, and this cooperation has been created benefit for thousands of English teachers internationally and across Ukraine. ITEFL Ukraine is a branch of ITEFL Global, and its mission is to link, develop, and support English language teaching professionals worldwide. At ITEFL Ukraine, we aim to strengthen the English language teacher community by building strong regional communities, recognizing the achievements of outstanding professionals, and celebrating their success stories. We also actively promote British Council initiatives within the new Ukrainian school reform projects and teaching excellence in higher education. In 2019, ITEFL Ukraine won Hornby Educational Trust Scholarship to develop regional communities of practice and opened 3 hubs in Dnipro, Chernivtsi, and Umань. This helped the practitioners from secondary, post-secondary institutions, English and subject teachers get together to collaborate with their students and the community on a variety of projects. With more than 40 institutional members and over 300 individual members in our nonprofit organization, ITEFL Ukraine assists a wide range of institutions. We assist a wide range of networks, professional networks, and individuals to become involved in professional information and networking activities. As a key asset, ITEFL Ukraine has a strong and active membership. By joining ITEFL Ukraine, you become a part of the largest, most dynamically developing professional community of international and Ukrainian experts and practitioners, and you can also get a discount for our events. So join our Facebook page and visit our site to get to know more about becoming a member of our professional organization. Over the years, ITEFL Ukraine has expanded the network of partners and broadened the range of events. We run winter and summer professional development schools annual conferences. Unfortunately, last year we had to postpone our face-to-face event, our 25th conference, due to the pandemic. And I'm happy to announce that this year it will be held online, so all registered participants will get the chance to meet famous international speakers and ELT practitioners from Ukraine. I would like to invite you all to our annual conference in April. This is going to be a 2-day event on 16th and 17th of April. All participants will get certificates of attendance. Please visit our Facebook page, ITEFL Ukraine, and the site for further details. The additional registration is opening this week. ITEFL Ukraine is meant to nurture a sense of belonging to the community of like-minded and committed professionals, and we are all here today to make it happen together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you for telling us about the ITEFL Ukraine and what you do. And I would like to add that during this online conference, which is going to happen this year, there will be Scott Sonbury, a keynote speaker. Please don't miss this opportunity and join ITEFL, become a member, and participate actively in the activities of this organization. Thank you, Ola. Thank you once again. And before we start, let me briefly walk you through the program. We have today with us 4 experts, ELT experts, who will share their experience of communicative language learning and teaching. Each of them will have about 10 minutes for their presentations on their topics and 5 minutes for questions exactly on this topic. After all experts have presented their presentations, there will be a 30-minute Q&A session. If you have a question or questions, please leave them in the comments box and our moderators will pass them on to the experts. The conference is being recorded, so if you miss some parts of it for different reasons, you can find the link to recording on the British Council Facebook page where you are now, and you can also find the link to presentations if you would like to have a closer look at it. And I would like to ask you to fill in the satisfaction survey, the link to which you can find at the same page. So thank you very much. So these are the house rules. And now I would like to introduce Maria Penna, who will be moderating forum discussions today. Maria joined the British Council in 2010 as a senior teacher young learners. She's currently working on English Online, our international online course with students from over 80 countries. A very successful course, I must say. Maria is not only English-speaking professional, she speaks Spanish and German as well. And her keen interest in teaching and learning online is not the only one. Maria travels a lot, she climbs the mountains, and she rides her motorbike when she has free time. And she's currently trying to learn to play the piano and draw online. Maria, good luck with your new skills, and here's your part now.
Thank you, Victoria, for your flattering introduction. Hello and welcome, everybody. I see that we have people from all parts of Ukraine, almost 500 participants at the moment. Let me tell you a quick story before we start. It's just that Olga mentioned Scott Thornberry, so I'll quickly tell you his story going around the TEFL world. So a teacher starts a class and asks everybody, how was your day? Teenage students, the way they are, they give very typical answers. Okay, normal. But then one student goes, well, it's not a very good day. My hamster died in the morning. So the teacher stops and says, very good, died. You finally used past simple correctly. I think you will all agree that this is not a very good model of meaningful interaction here. But we've all done things like that in our teaching careers sometimes because we are so focused on teaching English as a subject, and that's what we are expected to do in many cases. So that's why our students probably are not very motivated to engage in meaningful interactions with us. But in fact, there are ways to make the courses we teach and activities more communicative and more meaningful to our learners, more real life, and probably ultimately more motivating. And I think we'll get some great ideas from our 3 experts today. And the first one is Klер Росс. Claire is a very experienced teacher trainer. Hello, Claire.
Hi.
Really good to have you here. So Claire has been in teacher education for 16 years in the Middle East and in North Africa and globally as well, yes?
That's right.
And she's also a lead educator on British Council online courses. Claire, I must confess that your advice on Future Learn teaching young learners virtually was a breath of fresh air for me when we just went into the lockdown in the early days of the pandemic.
Oh, I'm so glad you did the course. That's brilliant.
Yes, though I remembered. Okay. And Claire is also interested in teaching and learning online, as many of us are these days, as well as inclusion of refugee learners. So Claire is going to tell us more about how to develop integrated skills in the classroom. Over to you, Claire.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Maria. And I loved that story as well that you told about the hamster. I think it's just good to have reminders of things like that, isn't it? Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. So off we go. It's great to be with you today. Warm welcome to all of you, wherever you are. in the country and outside the country as well, I believe. I'm talking today about integrating skills in language teaching. And by this, I mean listening, speaking, reading and writing. And I hope to put a case to you that it's a good idea not to only treat these separately, but try to integrate them into your lessons. As I talk, I'll be asking some questions, so please do take part, put comments in the chat so we can all listen to each other. So first, I have a question for you. Have a look at these 4 things on the screen. And which of these have you done recently? If you've done number 1, type number 1. If you've done all of them, you can type all, or the numbers of the things that you've done in the last few days. And I'm betting that most of you have done most of these things, as have I. Now, my next question for you is this. What language skill does each one involve? Is it just one skill? Well, number 1, called a friend. Okay, so you were speaking, but I'm sure also listening. Maybe if they gave you some information or something you wanted to remember, you wrote something down as well, so writing. What about when you watched the news? Again, you were listening. Maybe you were reading something on the screen, there was a headline or some data, and maybe there was something that made you really angry or happy or excited, and you spoke to someone at the same time. So what I hope I'm demonstrating here is that we use language skills in an integrated way in real life. We don't only read, we don't only speak, but we mix them all together. So when we're teaching, let's teach in an integrated way as well. Learning strategies are transferable between skills. We can use the skills that we need to read to develop our listening as well, and in other ways. If we integrate skills, we give our learners more opportunities to practice language, as we heard at the beginning, making our learners at the core of learning. And if we want our learners to be active, that does require doing and speaking and writing too. And of course, if we're getting our learners involved in these lessons, it means they'll be more personalized. My final point here, it's actually really hard and a bit unnatural not to integrate language skills. Now, you might want to focus in particular in reading in one lesson, and that's great. But what I'm saying is, let's have some other skills in there as well. All right, let's have a look at some materials from course books. You might recognize this one. What's the skills focus on this page? Take a look. Well, it says say and point. There's a few words, but I think you'll agree it's mostly a speaking activity here. Now, as you go up the levels in course books, you don't usually see a full page of speaking. It usually looks more like this, doesn't it? So lots of text, maybe some pictures, but speaking somehow becomes smaller. It's more difficult to see. Writing too. You don't often see a lot of writing. It's there, but it becomes smaller. It doesn't take up as much space on the page. But these skills are important, and we need to notice that they're there and also add to them. So let's look at some ways that you can integrate speaking into your lessons. Here are some pictures from the course book that I just showed from the reading activity. My question for you: how could you get your learners talking by using these pictures? What activity could you ask your learners to do? Well, of course, I've got some ideas. Maybe brainstorming vocabulary. They could guess the story. They could tell their own story. After reading, maybe they could retell the story, or maybe even write it too. Another great way to integrate speaking, pair checks, of course. Where on these 2 pages do you think you could put some pair work and have learners working together? Well, maybe here, before they read, looking at the pictures, as we said, guessing the answers to questions. maybe after they've read. So they're checking that they understood the text. And maybe here we've got a pronunciation activity. After giving them model, why not get them working together to practice the new sounds by themselves? Think, pair, share is a great strategy, and you can use that in lots and lots of different lessons. All right, let's look now at how we can help our learners respond to texts. Here I mean listening and reading. So here are listening and reading texts that I was interested in, that I saw in the last week. You can see it was a bit longer ago. This is for Women's Day. There's an article here. My niece sent me a video and a podcast that I enjoy. Another question. What do you do when you read or you watch something interesting? If somebody shared a video, if you read an interesting book or article, what do you do? Maybe you do the same as me. You share it, you talk about it, maybe you write about it, you forward that message, you tell someone what you liked. Well, I think we should be doing this with our learners as well, is encourage them to respond to texts, whether it's listening or reading or videos, but getting them talking or writing in response. Here are some ideas. Things we can do with speaking. Maybe they can act out the story, make predictions, see if they were right. Ask your learners what they think, what they would do if they were in this story or this article. Ask them what they liked or didn't like about it. Maybe what they agreed with, what they learned. So you can use KWL, what they know before, what they want to know, and then afterwards, what they learned. And also get them to talk about their own experiences. And lots of ideas for writing too. Again, talking about their experiences, maybe writing questions for a partner. Maybe reviewing what they've written in a sentence, just like we do when we forward something to a friend. Get them thinking creatively. What happened next or before? Or maybe imagine 10 years into the future, write a dialogue and they can act it out then too. And of course, there are some texts that they can reply to quite naturally, like emails or posts or articles where they could write a response. These are all ways to personalize teaching and integrate different skills into what might look like just a listening or a reading lesson. Now I'm going to finish with two different ways to approach texts. Maybe you've tried them before. If you have, let us know how it worked for you. Here's the first one, jigsaw. So you could do this with listening or reading. Here's how it goes. First of all, divide your students into A's and B's. Then you give different texts or videos or audios to each group. Then after they've read or watched or listened to their text, pair up your students A and B to share the information or solve a puzzle or complete a task. So what skills does this practice? Well, if they're reading or listening, we've got those, of course, but because you're making this communicative, we've got speaking as well and listening to each other. And if you get them to make notes, maybe writing too. And here's the second idea, running dictation. Can you see the kids in the photo? They're having a great time because this is a really fun activity. Here's how it goes. First, prepare some short texts, put them around the classroom. Put your students into groups. They choose a runner and writer for each group. Yes, the runner runs, goes to the text, reads it, tries to remember, goes back to their group to tell them. The group listen and the writer writes down what the runner has said. This is repeated, so the runners go back and forth looking at the text, trying to remember and telling their group until they've dictated all the text, and the final stage, the groups check what they've written against the original. Again, what skills does this practice? Well, there's reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And if you move the roles around sometimes, everybody gets to practice them all. All right, so bringing this together, I'm going to suggest when you look at your course book and you're planning your lesson next time, stop and think. Think critically. What's the lesson focus here? What skills are already there and what do I need to add? In a grammar or vocabulary lesson, is there speaking practice? Find it in the book. Is there writing? How can I help my learners to use this language in a meaningful way? In reading or listening, as we said, are there speaking opportunities? How can you help your learners to respond to the text? In writing, maybe you can integrate other skills too. Maybe you can get learners talking. And even in speaking, can you extend and make the most of it? Get your learners really listening to each other. Maybe there's an opportunity for some writing too. So my time is up, and I hope I've got you thinking about how you can integrate skills into your lessons.
Okay, Claire, thank you very much. That was a great start. Claire, thank you very much for such a great start and such an enthusiastic presentation. I think we had a lot of response in the chat. A lot of people are raving about jigsaw activities.
That's great.
There's also a special thanks from Hannah, from Ismail, who says that she really loves the integrated skills approach and she really loved the presentation. I think it was great that you gave us some practical ideas and hands-on ideas, but I really loved that you made this point that we have to think first what response is natural whenever we plan an activity. Yeah, so we should always think what we would do first before asking our learners to do the same. I think that was an amazing point as well. Claire, I think we've got time for one question. And a lot of our participants are keen to know the answer. Basically, it's how to keep the balance between reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Especially, what's the right balance between receptive and productive skills? You know, are there any guidelines on that? What's the best thing to do?
I think just going back to what I said at the beginning, when we look at a book, it looks like there's lots of reading and listening in there. And I think we need to not feel that that is the way it should be. So my advice is usually more speaking. I've taught teens and adults in many countries who've been through the school system. And I would say without exception, most of them came to class saying, I need to develop my speaking. So I don't know about the numbers or percentages, but I would say always look for more opportunities to get your learners talking.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Claire. We'll come back to you later with more questions on integrated skills.
Thank you, Maria.
And our next speaker is Tatiana Dakshner from Ukraine. Tatiana is also a teacher and a teacher trainer. There she is. Hello, Tatiana. She has a PhD in philology. She's an IATEFL Ukraine secretary, and she's also collaborated with the British Council for quite a long time, almost 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just the same as me, actually. So Tatiana has collaborated with the British Council as a course participant and as a trainer, and she is our core skills expert. Just to give you some numbers, she has successfully delivered about 30 British Council courses in the teacher trainer professional development framework. Tatiana, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maria.
Yes, Tatiana is also a very positive and energetic person, which I'm sure you will see in a moment. And Tatiana is going to tell us about the core skills and how we can incorporate those in our classes. Tatiana?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Maria, for the presentation. And yes, so let me share the screen. And yeah, here we are. So I'm delighted to be here today and to present the core skills to you. So the purposes of the presentation are three questions. What, how, and why, with the emphasis on how to incorporate core skills into everyday classroom. While listening, I will ask you to answer two questions. First, how could you adapt the ideas to your contexts? And how can they influence teaching and learning in the classroom? There are many names for skills necessary for life. In British Council classification, there are 6 of them. And so let's start with the what question. I would like to, here on the screen, you can see the key features of and strategies, how to develop critical thinking and problem solving. From my own experience and as world practice prompts, it's better to start with Bloom's taxonomy because it helps teachers right away to structure the lesson meaningfully based on activities on outcomes and objectives. I'm firmly convinced that by creating the culture in the classroom of questioning, the teacher plants seeds of all 6 core skills. Because answering the good questions encourage students to employ their high-order thinking skills. In everyday classroom, it means don't stop at factual questions, who, what, and when, but rather move to why, what, if, and would you. So how do I practice and develop critical thinking skills? So in my practice, it would look like this. So teacher presents a question, then students take a stance, and then form groups depending on the stance. What students need next is to base their stance on evidence. For that, they collect information, analyze and evaluate it. If needed, they reconsider their perspectives. So the next is time to learn to consider different perspectives, to develop active listening, and to assess the strength of evidence. And questioning cultures thrives if students take initiative and ask this and present the question themselves in the classroom. Not only do communicative strategies give opportunity for students to communicate and to construct their knowledge, but they also create opportunities to foster autonomy and to include all learners into active process of learning. 3 before me strategy and think, pair, share are can be easily integrated into everyday classroom. Undoubtedly, communication is tightly bound to collaboration, and you might already use assignment method, jigsaw, or projects. What's crucial to mention here that this method works only if teacher incorporates all key features of core skills into both teaching and learning. Universal design for learning might sound new, and what it stands for is how the teacher learns to involve all students into learning, how to present context in different ways, and how to differentiate, to present different ways in which learners will learn. As you can see on the screen, there is a wide variety of ways how to encourage creativity. So just systematically encourage students into asking questions, reflective critically, on everyday basis on their learning, and explore different ideas, be open to different perspectives. Citizenship is a 4-piece concept, which means participating in classroom life, in community life, knowing their rights and be accountable for the actions. What I would like to highlight is importance of identifying yourself and answering the question, who am I? Digital literacy is a highly relevant skill today, and what I would like to highlight here is what is not. It's not merely using the digital tool, but rather dealing with information critically, staying safe online, and protecting your data. So how to engage children into digital literacy? So using digital tools for creating information, for learning, then share this information with others, and to integrate digital skills into children research skills. While developing leadership, we need to focus on being ready, resourceful, resilient, responsible, and for example, role assignment, apart from being communicative and collaborative strategy, can also encourage reflective thinking. De Bono heads, in addition to different perspectives, can develop resourcefulness and problem solving. Balloon debating, along with being debate strategy, can also encourage resilience. And many games, there are really lots of games to develop emotional intelligence, resourcefulness, and resilience. What's important to mention here that leadership, it's not only for those who have or demonstrate already leadership skills. And second of all, it's not for leading others in the first place, but taking the responsibility and leading your own learning. Well, so how to integrate core skills into a classroom? It's to integrate it again together with language skills and context. To crown it all, I would like to say why it's important and useful, because core skills give practical tools how to create meaningful learning environment in which learners can fulfill their potential, make informed decisions, and to contribute to the world. So I want to invite you to practice core skills and to be reflective. So answer the two questions that you see on the screen and find a partner. So think, pair, share in action. Find a partner and discuss the ideas with him or her. So the ideas were developed on the basis of core skills courses, which are a part of Connected Classroom project. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you very much, Tatiana. It was a really thought-provoking session, I must say. A lot of our participants confess that they really like Bloom's taxonomy as well. I think the great thing about developing core skills is that we don't really need any additional materials to do this. Yeah, we can just work with the activities and materials we already have. It's just a way of thinking differently, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah, and what I like about core skills is that students become resource. So that if teachers acknowledge that students can bring, they are already there, and just let them take the responsibility, bring the ideas to classroom, and take the strategy, organize the work in class, and then all the core skills will thrive.
Okay, we've on the registration forms, we had a lot of questions about how to develop critical thinking skills and collaboration, and I think we'll come back to those later. But now we've got one question here. At what level is it worth starting to develop high-order thinking skills? I imagine the question is about the level of English in this case. So what level do students need to have to be able to work on core skills?
Well, the sooner the better.
Okay, great answer.
Yeah, from my own experience, I teach different age just to practice and to savor, to taste when to start. And I can tell from my experience that primary learners are perfectly fit into higher order thinking skills. In terms of language, because we cannot expect at secondary school to have higher order thinking students if we don't start at primary. In terms of language, they might not answer with full sentence or a full paragraph, but they can say, answer the question why with one word or word combination. So this is what's important here, to make a focus on the core skill and critical thinking in this case.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Yes, we've got a comment from Larissa Pavluk saying, thank you very much, a very useful session. And from Daria, thanks a lot. Everything starts with a great question in your presentation. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you later.
See you.
Okay, and we're moving on to the next session, which is about the flipped classroom approach in developing learners' communicative language skills. So I'd like to welcome Majo Galleno from Uruguay. Hello, Majo. Okay, I'll introduce you a little bit. So Majo's been teaching English for 18 years, and she is currently an educational technologist. And she's also a moderator of the online teacher community platform. So I imagine some of our participants have met you before.
Yes, they have.
Great. Yeah, Maho is very interested in the application of technology in the classroom with a meaningful purpose.
Yeah.
I think, Maho, your interest took you very far because you got an MA in digital technology and communication from the University of Manchester for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to study.
Okay. Can I share some of your hobbies?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Maho also loves jewelry making and drinking mate, which is a Uruguayan drink. Ah, great. Okay.
My jewelry and my mate.
I see you've got your calabasa ready.
Yes.
Great. So over to you, Maho.
Okay, so thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. So I hope that you're all doing well, and you should be able to see my screen now. Great. So the idea of today was to look at flipped classrooms. And of course, the idea always is to develop the learner's communicative language skills. So back in 2013, I remember there was an article in English Teaching Professional magazine. It was by Jim Scrivener and Adrian Underhill, which I'm sure that you all know, wonderful authors. And these two questions have stuck with me since then. Have the tasks and techniques I use in class become rituals and ends in themselves? Do I need to shift preoccupation from running a successful task to optimizing learning? And that brings me back to Maria's comment on, the use of the past simple of my hamster died. So this type of thing is that sometimes we are focusing so much on the successful task that we forget the teaching behind. And of course, the whole idea is that our students learn. So in general, regardless of the approach that we choose, whether it be inductive or whether it be the more deductive approach, whether it be guided discovery, all of the different approaches that we have learned, there's always these three steps. There's an introduction to theory, there's an understanding of the theory, and then there's putting the theory into practice. These three steps are usually whether it be guided, whether it be just more the student discover and the teacher being more on the background. It doesn't matter specifically the role here, but this is something that we usually have, we will find always in the classroom. So, these are the three steps, and all our textbooks, I'm sure that you have the same course books that we have here in Uruguay, very similar, and you will notice that there's always an introduction, whether it be vocabulary, a listening, a video, and then the understanding, and then, of course, that important aspect of putting this into practice. Now, what happens a lot of the times is that we sometimes focus too much, maybe, on the understanding of the theory, and there's not enough of putting the practice. And this is what flipped classrooms is all about. The idea is that you focus on your learning. Okay? Focus on your learners by involving them in the process. I liked this acronym that I found a few years back. And here we've got, at the moment of planning, it's tempting to aim our class at the middle of the group. So we're focusing on, we're focusing on the students that generally follow us, not the fast ones, not the slow ones, but the ones in the middle. Susan Parcell, in one of her texts, she suggests not to do this. And this is because it's frustrating for everybody. One will get bored, the others will get lost, and in the middle, hopefully, they will be able to keep up. So flipped classrooms allows a way to become more of an integration of the different levels. So what do we ask our students to do? It's asking them to be in charge of their learning. It's for them to take decisions and make choices. And a big thing that we as teachers struggle most is to enable us to trust them. I'm sure that you will have the same issues that I do, that I like to be in control. This is why I'm a teacher. We do like to be in control. The thing is that we can't always be in control. There are things that we need to solve. So there are things that we need to be able to let go, and flipped classrooms is a great idea for that. So what do we have to do as teachers? There needs to be a shift of attitude. Learners are capable of more than we typically ask of them. And this is about us being able to trust them. It's also about, asking them to take more charge of their own learning. We need to change a focus of teacher energy. So we need to go from more of the preoccupation with the mechanics of the activity. We think about, okay, first I need to do this. Students will need to fill in the blanks. Then we have to do some reading, and then we have to go back. So there's a sense of always thinking about what's coming next. What flipped classrooms allows us to do is to allow us to move from that preoccupation and basically look towards the material and making the learning visible itself. And I think this is the best part of flipped classrooms. It helps us with, making that learning visible. And of course, it requires us a little change in technique with well-tuned interventions and higher skill sets of classroom management. Now, classroom management, it's very interesting. There are many different theories. There are many different authors. And a lot of the classroom management has to do is with our personalities. I have a certain way of managing my classrooms that works for me. Maybe you have something different that if I tried your approach to classroom management, it wouldn't work. But if we are going to adapt these flipped classrooms into our classroom, it's going to be a bit more useful if we just tune these and adapt them to our teaching practice. So basically, this is the idea of the flipped classroom, is to create a video or find a video of content. Students watch that recording at home, not at school. So students watch this recording and students complete a comprehension task to make sure that they understood that. Now, a lot of, I'm not sure about your books, your current books that you're using at the moment, but in this case, with students, when students are working, we've got this recording and maybe they don't understand very much. They can play it again and again and again and again until they understand the concept. And this is one of the greatest benefits. A lot of our course books may have videos that you might want to include. Others, maybe you don't want to include them yet. And, maybe you want to create your own videos. I know I've created my videos. I teach, I used to teach until last year. I taught adults. And, adults are specific about the vocabulary. So if maybe it was present simple in their textbooks, but I find a video on simple present, it's kind of messy and they feel uncomfortable with that. So I've created my own videos to make sure that it's the same terminology as their course books. So, I've created my videos, and the videos should not be long. They need to be 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes maximum for older students, and maybe 3 to 5 for younger students. So the students watches that, and then they do a comprehension task that means that they understood that task. Now, this task that we are doing, the comprehension task that you might find is in your workbooks. In your, maybe your course books have this famous, maybe they have a platform where they can do some quick work. The idea here is that they have simple tasks, and it's basically to check that they understood. And if you think about it, flipped classrooms, I used it a lot when it comes to grammar and vocabulary, because, and not constantly, of course, I've varied it. And one of the things that it's used for here is that it allows me to do a quick check to make sure that all students are following. And then in the classroom, I expand. If you look at your course books, a lot of the times, the first 2 or 3 exercises that come right after the introduction of the text, of the vocabulary or of the grammar point, those will always be the simple exercises. And then maybe the last 2 or 3 exercises, moving on, are more difficult. And what happens is that those more difficult exercises can be done in class with the teacher, with the help of the teacher. And this is one of the great benefits. And then, as Claire mentioned, you can take advantage of that and then use that and create that into a speaking activity. So, because communication, we need to make the most of the communicative part in our classrooms. I don't know if, here in Uruguay, as of last night, we've gone back online. We were doing so well, and now we're back online. at schools. And so our video conferencing time is reduced. We do not have the same amount of hours that we do face-to-face. So what we do is that face-to-face, we take advantage and we do that communicative part, because that is when we are in class, we need to make the most of that interaction, whether it be speaking or writing. I don't know about writing, how you feel about it in class. I know it takes a lot of time, but imagine if we could help them with those, in writing and have the teacher there. Then they continue at home, but they could do the beginning part in class with you. Some pros and cons. The positive aspect is that students control the speed and when they stop, when they pause, if they want to watch it again or not. And I think this is something that's motivating for them, because it promotes student-centered learning and collaboration. They can look at the lesson and content, and it can be more efficient. In time-wise, in class, you save time, because instead of explaining 3 or 4 times that text, the aspect, you're explaining it more. We can also, you explained it once and they can watch it again and again. And if you think about, Tatiana mentioned earlier the UDL, Universal Design Learning. This is also an aspect that helps with this, because you've created this video, the student decides how many times they watch it. The fast student will understand it quickly. The slow student maybe needs to watch it 2 or 3 times, and that's fine. Each one will be able to learn at their own pace, and then in the classroom have all of this together. So some of the negative aspects that it could create this digital divide, those who have access to online and those who don't. But I think today the world has changed so much that this is maybe not such an issue as it used to be in the past. Of course, not all kids have access to online, but if you have, in your context, you have this, I think it's a great way to make the most of it. Relies on preparation and trust. You have to trust your students to watch it. And that's kind of nervous. I'm tough love. They know that they need to watch it. The first time they didn't watch it, I will continue the lesson and they will be lost. The second time, they know that they will not have to watch it. They know they will have to watch it. So it is a significant amount of work for us, but afterwards, it's there. 10 years ago, I tried flipped classrooms 10 years ago, and I still have those videos today. So those videos that I created 10 years ago are still being used today. It's not a natural test of learning, so it's not testing, you're just trying things out. And of course, it does cause an issue of time in front of screen instead of being outside doing something else. But again, in this context, wouldn't that be different? So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. I shared very quickly. I was aware of time. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Maho. That was a very inspiring talk. I personally feel like rushing and flipping all my teenage classes right now. And okay, we've got some really nice comments. Irina Bondarchuk says it's a great idea. As for the video, I use it too, and it's really useful.
Exactly.
Olga Danilenko says it's a great idea for teachers who don't believe that their learners are capable of more than we typically ask of them.
I like that. They're capable of more. We just need to push them to believe that they can do that, and this will affect their motivation as well, which I think is always an issue.
Oh, okay. We've got quite a few questions, Maho. So are you ready to take a few questions?
Please.
Okay, everybody's promising to flip more. In the meantime, is video the only source of input in a flipped classroom? It's a question from Sasha Shalenko.
That's a good question. Honestly, I think in the term of like the definition of flipped classrooms, maybe it is. But I remember when I was young that a teacher would tell me, you have to read this information first, find this information, understand it, do a comprehension or summary, and then come to class prepared. I honestly think that flipped classrooms is just that. It's what maybe when we were younger or even our parents were younger were asked to do. So video is not the only way that they can get that information. If you have a good text that is simple, great, go for it.
Okay. And You also mentioned that it's mostly about grammar and vocabulary, yes? The things that you can flip are mostly systems. Do you think that it's possible to also flip some skills work, like reading and listening, so that we could make more room for speaking and writing, as Claire mentioned earlier?
I think that's a good question. Reading, I'm sure that we can, but my question is, how is that different from just sending them to do reading a task on their own? If we're doing the reading skills, for example, of teaching them specifically, okay, this is scamming, this is skimming, this is scanning, that type of thing, I think that would be useful, and then give them some exercises for them to do. And of course, in class, take advantage of that, because we still need to develop all the other skills, but we can make the most of those, of the speaking, of the interaction. And of course, clear any doubts that the kids still may have.
And then, of course, everybody's interested in how you could raise learners' motivation. So basically encourage them to watch those videos or do those tasks before their class. And personally, I had that problem that a lot of teenagers would just skip it or watch it too quickly. Do you have any perhaps techniques or tips that you could give us to make sure that students, actually watch those videos?
I think first of all, it depends a lot on the bond that you have with your students. First of all, they know that I'm easygoing, but I'm strict. There are things that they have to do the homework. So, for example, if they don't actually watch the videos, we have to see why they didn't watch it. Was it because maybe they had too much work or something? Then we need to be a little bit understanding. The first time of doing flipped classrooms, I would watch the video in class with them. So then they know what to expect, because sometimes we send them, watch this video and do these exercises, and they don't really understand. They don't fully comprehend. So maybe watch the video with them in class, do the questions, the simple comprehension questions. And if you have time, do that expansion part that naturally comes after all of these points, language points, and take advantage of that in the classroom or the next lesson. And then get them to focus maybe, well, don't you think this is something that you could do alone? Start asking those type of questions. Okay, yes, well, let's try it this time. Next, for this homework, this time, watch the video and do these exercises. And simple. And that way they can start learning how to do this process, because I think it's also about training.
So it's basically about learner training as well. So you're showing them how to do it. You're reducing that challenge of how to go about the task.
Reducing the challenge and reducing the excuse. Because then because then next time is maybe 2 or 3 didn't watch it. Again, tough love. The student that watched it fast, was it because maybe they didn't need it and they understood it okay? Then great. Then I would actually, when they're starting to work and they're starting to produce that expansion, and you see the mistakes, do you remember the video? This particular aspect was shown in the video. You don't remember, but then maybe go watch it again. Give them that opportunity, so that way they see the importance of it. Because if we then, maybe 2 or 3 don't watch it and we still show it in class, next time, I'm not going to watch it. What's the point? We're going to show it in class. So a bit of tough love, understanding, and finding the way with each student, I think, is the key.
Absolutely. Maho, thank you very much for your answers. I think there are many more questions about flipped learning, and there is a lot of positive response. So we'll certainly come back to some of your questions later.
Great.
Okay, but now it's time for our final presentation. And today we have 2 special guests who are neither teacher trainers nor teachers, yet they can give us a very important perspective into meaningful learning. We've got with us today Jan Kosteniak, who is network engineer at AT&T, currently living in Slovakia. Hi, Jan.
Hey, hi everybody. Good afternoon.
Yes, Jan, I imagine you use English a lot in your everyday life because you say you have American workmates, Brazilian and Norwegian neighbors, and Israeli friends, and lots of Slovak people around.
Yeah, that's right. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Jan Kosteniak. Originally, I'm from Chernivtsi, Ukraine. Currently, I'm living in Slovakia, Košice. I'm working at the position of senior network engineer at the AT&T branch located here. So yeah, first of all, I would like to express gratitude to all English teachers that are sacrificing themselves in order to deliver as much materials and knowledge to their students as it's possible. Especially I appreciate my head teacher. She's participating in the meeting as well, Mrs. Molodek. Hi, greetings. To begin with, I believe I was among the first group of lucky children in my school back in 2000, as well as the access to the new wave student books. We got the access to the multimedia devices. We had, I believe, the very first desktop PC in our class, and we got the great opportunity to play the English learning games on the PC. Another good point was to use the television in our class, and it was very common to dedicate one lesson or even the pair of lessons for watching the movie in English without any translation, sometimes even without subtitles. Third one option that I loved so much as I was studying at the gymnasium with in-depth learning of English. There were lots of English special courses such as English hotel study, hotel business, economical business English, English and American and British literature, and so on and so on. And that clearly shows to the student that there are multiple areas or multiple industries where the English knowledge can be utilized. Although I consider that all these approaches were extremely effective, here I need to admire that I could spend less time, less responsibility, more time, more responsibility, and more willpower to learn English. And in my opinion, the main issue was I didn't realize that knowing English has any practical impact. So only after our school started to participate in the FLEX program, I believe you are aware of that. However, I was not the one who traveled to US, but that was my very first experience that I realized that, oh, hey, English is not only the lessons. I can use it outside the school. I can use it for communication with local people abroad. I can even survive with English outside my native country. So to sum up everything that I told, basically there are two common recommendations that I have for English teachers. The first one is, in my opinion, once student has enough of grammar, vocabulary, verbal skills to maintain the live conversation, I would recommend to dedicate at least a half of time, even 80% of time for the listening part. Based on my experience, as I'm working in big IT company, I have the business meetings with customer on daily basis. Among them are Americans, British people, Japanese people, Indians, even Finns, and everybody has its own accent. So you should have your ear trained not only for reference English, but for different flavors of English. And it's very crucial when you're participating in the meeting and your colleagues and other participants, some of them are driving the car, some of them are riding in the underground, and it's extremely crucial to understand what they are talking about or what they are asking for. And if person is not able to recognize what was told to him or her, unfortunately, all further skills are useless.
Oh, thank you very much, Jan.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, that was quite a presentation. It just goes to show that your English is really good and you've really mastered it well. So basically what you are suggesting to us as teachers that we should have more live conversation, real life conversation, different accents, different background noises, and more speaking in the classroom. That's what helped you the most, right?
Yeah, I would say nowadays we are living in multimedia era. So I would recommend to our teachers, to our schools, somehow contact the non-commercial different organizations and schedule the live breaches with the group of native speakers. Maybe they can be the same group of students located somewhere in UK or America, so that we can let children to communicate between each other in order to see that they can use this English like in a very practical way.
Yes, that's great. So basically any international experience with any learners from other countries would be invaluable for learning. Jan, a lot of teachers agree with you and say that your ideas are just great and very useful, and a lot of people are writing them down already. So thank you so much for your tips.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, lots of people. Olga
It was a big
Danilenko
pleasure.
says, thank you for sharing your experience. It's an amazing example of motivation for our learners nowadays. Perhaps they will invite you one day. Okay, and we've got another guest, Jon. Hello, Jon. Great. Jon, so you are an architect and you're currently living and working in London, right? Yes. Jon, can you say hello to us? We can't hear you very well, I'm afraid. No, still nothing, but perhaps while it's getting sorted, I'm going to ask you yes/no questions so you can give us some information. So you are living and working in London, right? Okay. Do you remember your English learning experience at school? It looks like a yes. Okay. Would you give the same recommendations as Jan to our teachers? No, sorry, we still can't hear you. So perhaps you could give us a nod or say no. No, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't hear you, but perhaps if we could fix the sound, then we'll come back to you later and ask you a few questions. Yes, great. Thank you, Jon. Sorry about that. Okay, and now this is the end of our presentations and we'll be moving into our Q&A session. So I hope you've got your questions for our experts ready. Claire, Maho, and Tatiana are coming back now. Can we have Claire, Maho, and Tatiana? Okay, welcome back, Claire.
Just me.
You're very fast. There goes Tatiana. Okay, and let's see if Maho's here. So as I mentioned, yeah, everybody's here, right? So we can start. We've had quite a few questions in the registration form, and I think we'll be getting more questions from the chat. All of you can answer questions, but please put up your hands so that I know who is answering first, and then you can also make comments after other people have spoken. Yes, so we have a lot of questions about general and integrated skills, so let's start with those. What are the best tasks to boost interaction and communication in general? I know that you've already mentioned a lot of practical ideas, but perhaps you could share your favorites now. So the best tasks to really boost interaction in teenage classes.
I'll answer.
Okay, Maho, go ahead.
Okay. Maybe one of the options, one of the things that I like is making the most of the textbook. I think this is what Claire really tried to impart on us. And one of the things that I noticed, one of my favorite tasks that I used to do always is any task will do for speaking. So even if it's the boring filling in the blanks, using the present simple correctly. So they would use that, do that, the grammar part, perfect. And then I would ask them to, it says, okay, make those sentences true for you. So they will have to rewrite or think, depending on the level, if I gave them time to write or not. The higher the level, the less. I mean, I'm saying, okay, go talk to your partners and make these true for you. And then they would have to listen to each other. Let's gossip, which is something that we all love. So now new partners, I would move one around and they have a new partner, share with that partner what you just heard. So a simple 5-minute activity that you would do, and I think we do it without thinking sometimes in class, can actually be done and be extended in that sense. The higher the level, the more extension. Then we can get partners to ask questions and things. The lower the level, the more controlled we need to do it. But still, they still have that possibility of making it true for them and then sharing that gossiping. So there you've got loads of grammar, vocabulary, and interaction, which is the most important thing.
Thank you, Maho. I think it's really, really important for teenagers to be able to personalize things as well, and that's why it's so successful. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here comes the next question. It's a question from Alina Stangret. I hope I got the name right. How to develop critical thinking skills. So how can we actually do it? Okay, this is a big question. I'm not sure if it's about particular activities, but perhaps Tatiana, you would know better how to answer that question.
Yeah, okay, so let me start probably, and the colleagues will share. So as I've mentioned in my presentation, so to understand how to develop, you need to answer the question, what is critical thinking? And in the first place, critical thinking are those questions that the teacher asks in the class. So first of all, develop your questioning as a teacher. So not factual, but just move on. What if? Would you do this? How would you do this? And what I love and what I think is important is when students start this asking questions themselves. Recently, we've taken part in the project. Actually, we are still taking part. We haven't sent the results yet. And the task was choose a person from the life, from the past to present, and formulate questions. So students did it, and then we started analyzing the questions. So like, okay, then the group works with the questions of each other, and then they wrote like, after the first review, almost all comments were not interesting, and then I asked them, so what will make interesting? So let's think how to make, and then I just gave them the Bloom's taxonomy questioning, and they just got themselves the question that go deeper or higher in Bloom's taxonomy are more interesting. So then they started formulating the question themselves. So questioning the answer, going back to the question about critical thinking, it's questioning in the first place. And then the features of critical thinking, it's base everything on evidence. Whatever they say, I ask, how do you know this? So just look for the evidence for me and prove it. If you think that this is interesting, why do you think this is interesting? Go and analyze the information and the different perspectives. So everything that goes, as colleagues mentioned, think, pair, share, all group work, they encourage different perspectives. So the more students speak, the more students share their perspectives, the more they learn from each other. And this is critical thinking, to be able to accept this perspective, because when you start, teenagers especially, teenagers, they love this, they understand that they have the voice and they want to express their ideas, but what's also crucial is to be able to hear others. So this considering and being able to hear each other is also very important. And then problem solving. And I do believe in the power of, I repeat myself, in the power of encouraging and involving students into decision-making in classroom. Because if the task that is presented is not mine, but theirs, they will be involved, they will be thinking harder. And that's why I very often negotiate what we do in class. And then the students come to my class and they say, let's play a game. And I say, okay, you want to play a game? Prove me. Base it on evidence that is better than my objective, that reading text. And they say, and they are very creative. They come up with such great ideas. And very often they create, I admit, they even create better games and tasks that I did. And that's what really, yeah, is very rewarding. So these are my strategies and what I do.
Thank you, thank you. That's a bunch of different ideas. So we as teachers should get into the habit of asking more questions and saying less, right?
And oh yeah, and one more important thing, reflection, and one more time reflection. Here in my presentation, you've noticed that there are the questions. So reflect after the task, reflect after the class, reflect after the unit, and both. Me as a teacher reflect, and I engage students into reflecting on their learning and on giving me tips. So this is also very boosting critical thinking, just the creating opportunity for reflecting every day.
Thank you, Tatiana. Jon is back and his microphone is working and he's very eager to share his recommendations with our participants as well. So let's take a short break for Jon. Hi again.
Oh, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And I can see you as well.
Okay. So my name is Jon. I was born in Czernowtsi, and since then I've been to many places. And at this moment I live and work in London, which is an amazing place. Actually, I recommend if you haven't been here. And I would like to talk about my experience of learning English, because I started to learn English first as an adolescent, and then after, when I was an adult, after I graduated university. And I'm a bit anxious, and I'm so when I was
it's very interesting what you're telling us. There's a lot of great response to what you're saying.
So, and because when I was in school as an adolescent, I had a different approach, because I was quite fortunate. My parents could afford to send me to a private school, but only to study English for a brief period of time. And it was a great experience. And I can compare that to how the process was in school, because it was quite different back then. For instance, in that private school, we had beautiful British books, that's from Cambridge, and the classes were structured quite differently. People by default were motivated and were interested in the studying language. And we had kind of movies, we had audio tapes, and and the teachers, the most important, the teachers were used to spend much more time with us, because the classes were much smaller than the classes in school. Because in school, my teacher was Andrei Viktorovich Verbovoy. You probably know him. And he's an amazing teacher. His English is amazing, because he also trained me later. But in school, actually, most of his time was devoted to calming people down and trying just to express the topics of the lesson, and then just spending the time on calming down children, and which is quite, I would say, ineffective for us. And I remember me back in school, all the books and the way the lessons were structured was very boring, and I didn't learn anything back there, unfortunately. But but later, when I was preparing for IELTS, I took it very seriously, and I was very motivated. And I can say that IELTS actually, well, the way this test is structured, I think you don't need more and you don't need anything else. Because IELTS, it stresses all your core skills, which is reading, listening, talking, and writing. And while I was preparing for IELTS, it was very demanding as a person. You actually need to be like a very clever person to get a high grade. And while preparing, I learned to be much more articulated and much more precise. And actually, I noticed that these traits have become part of me, and it's kind of started to reflect in my life as a professional. Because now I'm after that, I've become much more able to express my thoughts, my ideas, much more precisely and coherently than it was before. So I think kind of preparing myself for the IELTS was one of the best things that I've done in my life, because it kind of shaped me into a different person, and it helped me a lot. And about the what I would recommend for you, just to be a bit more thorough and a bit more forceful on the children, because yeah, I didn't like, and another thing that I'd like to point out is that when I went to that private school, I was also much more interested because the learning was presented in a different way. In those books, which I loved, they had like beautiful artworks, very colorful. I still remember them. The way the knowledge was presented is in short topics on different subjects, about everything, about culture, about history, about different people, different countries, and it was really fascinating back then. So I was actually more interested in content through which they also gave vocabulary and grammar. While in school, we just had vocabulary and grammar. It was totally not interesting.
I see. So you were basically very motivated when you had some kind of real life importance. You had topics, exams, and that's what gave you that boost?
Well, that was later, but when I was in school, it's kind of was the content, which was like the way the lessons were structured, was much more interesting for me back then, because it was much more entertaining at first. It used to capture my kind of attention much more than it was in school. In school, it wasn't very interesting, as I remember. And it's not teacher's fault. It's the way the system was structured back then.
Okay, so content was key for you in that case.
Yes.
Jan, thank you very much for coming back and for sorting out the microphone. We've got some comments for you. Your ideas are very helpful and exciting. Thank you very much, from Alina. And Oksana Kochugan says it would be very motivational for our students to be here and actually listen to what you're saying here. So you would be a great example for other learners. Lubov Gritsuk is asking, I'm not sure if it's a question to you, but it probably is. What books did you use for learning? Those colorful, exciting books. Do you remember?
Those were Cambridge books. That's what I remember. But I don't remember their names. But they were like really beautiful. I remember that all the images were like they looked like they were handmade. And they were like really nice.
Yes. Okay. So I think that would generally give us as teachers a good idea of what content should look like. Jan, thank you very much for your tips here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And can we have our 3 experts back, please? Okay. As we were talking to Jan, I think we had another question that popped up in the chat. And the question is about flipped learning. Apparently, there's a lot of interest in flipped learning. How can we assess or evaluate what students do beyond the classroom? And how can we assess this flipped part, I suppose?
Interesting question. First of all, I think the best thing would be to really embrace what flipped classrooms is. They do the easy, repetitive work at home, and then the expansion they would do in class. It is in that expansion that we use to assess how well the video worked, how well those simple comprehension tasks worked. That is the best way to go about it. So, because in class, it's not just you do something at home and nothing in class. In class, you do that expansion, that extra work that in course books, for example, you always have that, basic, really simple sentences to fill in, or really simple comprehension questions. And then there's always more of a use of that language. In that use of language is when you see if things are worked well or not. If they didn't, maybe it's 1 or 2 students, you can do some remedial work as you're working with them as you have all your students working. Otherwise, if it's in general, then maybe you need to stop, go back to basics. Okay, let's see what you understood from the video. Let's see what you understood. And then that way you can work it out. Maybe that video, even if it was from the book, maybe that video wasn't the best input for them. And that's okay. No, it's all about learning as well for us. So that's probably the assessment would be in that expansion that's done in class with the teacher.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I think all the other experts agree with you, nodding their heads.
Yeah, I just agree with that assessment, the part of, as far as I understand, flipped classroom, this flipped part is not to be assessed. It's just the assessment takes place, the higher order thinking skills take place in class, and the assessment takes in class.
Okay, so it should not be treated as a more traditional homework, which has to be checked, yeah? So it's different like that.
Exactly.
Well, I would probably flip here face-to-face classes as well, and treat task as in the flipped classroom.
Okay, thank you very much. And then we've got one more question, which is probably for all of you. Jan and Jon, they both mentioned the importance of real-life tasks for them, I guess, so very relevant communication. And one of our participants asked, what ideas can we use to create real-life situations in the classroom? Or how can we create these more real-life tasks? Do you have any tips for creating those more realistic, more relevant situations for learners?
I think, can I answer this one? Because I that's the first question I heard. So I'll take advantage. I really liked listening to Jan and Jon's experience. And I think as teachers, it's very powerful, isn't it, to listen to someone who has learnt English and talking about what worked for them. So I just wanted to thank both of you for sharing that. Something Jan said was talking to other people, international people, really communicating with people from different countries. And there's something that you can get involved in, which is mystery Skypes. So here, I don't know if anyone's tried this. If you have, write it in the comments. But you can sign up for this and say that your school is interested, and they can put you in touch with another school. You arrange a time for a Skype, and you can ask and answer questions to the people that appear on your Skype wall. So it's great for a connected classroom. I've also done this with friends of mine. So I invited a friend of mine from Alaska to my class, and I just said to my learners who are kids, I said, there's somebody coming, you have to find out where she is and what's her job. So they prepared some questions. My friend came online in the classroom, and my kids were asking her questions, trying to find out who she was. And they were super excited because they were talking to a real person. So things like that are really, really motivating, quite easy to set up if you've got that connection.
Thank you, Claire. That sounds fun. Tatiana, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing that's not bringing the real life to class, but probably bringing class to real life. What occurred to me is digital literacy here, because by creating information and sharing online and then having connections with other classes and towns, or maybe even countries, that's how real life, goes out of the classroom. So the class goes into the real world, not the real world comes to the classroom.
Yeah, sounds great. So great. There's one more question in the chat for us. Can you share the ideas for developing the leadership skills or personal development? Perhaps all of you have a tip for our participants, how to develop leadership skills in the classroom. Personal development, very interesting question here.
I can start. I think, first of all, we need to enable it. If we don't give the space for our students to do this, then they will not be able to develop these skills. So maybe at the beginning, with project work or even simple tasks that we do in the classroom, give each of them a role and specifically tell them what is expected of them. It's not something very simple. They need to know what is expected. If you are the leader what are we expecting you to do? Well, you're expected to do this and this. Okay, great. If you're going to keep your group on time in the specifically for project work, which may take 2 or 3 weeks, and you are going to have to keep them in time, make sure that you do that. So give them the chance. I think that's the first step towards that. And tell them what is expected of them specifically. Don't assume that they will understand.
Okay, so giving a model. I think Claire likes that idea as well. Tatiana?
Yeah, just leadership, core skill. Yeah, so definitely would like to add here. And what I think, so that was British Council course and the materials that gave me personally this new perspective, new understanding of leadership as not leading others. That's why I mentioned it in my presentation. And I really want to convey this message that, what I do in my classes, what I focus on, it's not only given the opportunity to lead others, rather like taking the responsibility for your own learning, meaning, okay, asking questions. So what is, at the beginning of the year, what are your goals? So setting the goals for the whole year, and then in the form of formative assessment, having this conversation with students and giving them a chance themselves to decide what to do and how to improve. And again, reflection. So reflecting on their activities. So taking lead, let them learn first, lead themselves and their learning.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, leading by example and that. And finally, I think we can ask Jan is still here, and why don't we ask him what really motivated him in his learning? Jan, what really motivated you in the classroom?
Do you mean the time I was studying at the school, or later in the high school?
I think any of your learning experience would be very interesting. I think whatever you can remember, something memorable that really motivated you in the classroom.
To be honest, the first time I was really motivated, that was once I realized that I am in the United States, because I was traveling for work and travel US program. And once I realized that I'm not able even to understand what the local people are talking to me, that was the great reason to do my best in order to understand live local language. After I returned from US, I started to watch movies, series, TV series, TV shows, etc. And then when I moved to Czech Republic, basically the English was the main language until I started to speak Czech. So and well, in general, each new country that I was visiting, before I learned the local language, I needed to use English. So I consider English as the most important survival skills, the same skills as you should have, let's say, deep in the mountains and you have nothing. So I would consider English as the same skill.
Thank you, Jan. I think this is actually a great way to wrap up our Q&A, because some of our participants really asked that question, how to survive in general. And I think you just answered that question perfectly. Learn English. Okay, and I think we've had a lot of positive comments and no more questions, so our Q&A is coming to the end. Thank you very much, Jan, Jon, Maho, Claire, Tatiana. Thank you for your valuable ideas, and thanks to our audience for the great questions and your activity in the chat. Stay tuned, and I am handing over to Victoria.
Hello once again. It was a really great time. I was enjoying it from the very first beginning. So useful ideas. And I really regret not teaching at the moment, not being a teacher at the moment, being just a project manager. because what I've heard from our experts and from Jan and Jon really motivated me to work and develop and to use something new. And I think that if we bring real life situations to the classroom, or the classroom bring to real life, integrate the skills, incorporate core skills into the lesson, develop our learners as leaders, as deep thinkers, and use the approach of a flipped classroom, using more time during the lesson for practicing English rather than learning it. I think that we will bring meaningful and involving communication of our learners, and our learners will be more motivated, and our learners will love English, and they will be excited to go to the English lesson. And I really wish that for your learners, not going to the lesson would be a punishment. So thank you very much for Claire, Maho, Tatiana, Maria, Jan and Jon, for your interesting ideas, for your useful ideas. I was reading the chat, and for me it was feeling like a real life. So positive feedback, so a lot of thanks, a lot of praising and praising words. I wish you all good luck, and I wish you stay safe and take care of yourself and your loved ones, and see you in our future events. Goodbye.